Danny Cole stood at the observation window of Prime and watched three alien transport ships dock at the station. He was 19 years old, 6,000 light years from Earth, and he had never felt smaller in his entire life. The Galactic Coalition Training Academy was not designed for humans. The doorways were built for species that stood 8 feet tall. The gravity was set 15% higher than Earth standard. The air carried a faint metallic taste that made Danny's throat dry no matter how much water he drank. But he was here, and he was not going to waste this chance. Humanity had joined the coalition only 12 years ago. In galactic terms, that was nothing. Most species had been members for thousands of years. They had built empires, fought wars, and established traditions long before humans learned to make fire. To them, humans were children. Fragile, emotional, short-lived children who somehow talked their way into the greatest military alliance in known space. Danny was one of 8 human cadets selected for the exchange program. Out of 3 billion applicants from Earth and the colonies, only 8 made it through. His mother cried when he left. His father shook his hand and told him to make them proud. His little sister punched him in the arm and made him promise to bring back something alien and cool. He intended to keep all those promises. Lieutenant Maya Vance found him at the window an hour later. She was 26, a veteran of 2 deep space deployments, and the assigned liaison for the human cadets. She had dark hair cut short in military fashion and eyes that had seen things Danny could only imagine. "You should be in your quarters," she said. "Orientation starts in 4 hours." Danny turned to face her. "I wanted to see it," he said. "All of it. I have been reading about this place my whole life." Maya walked to stand beside him. The station spread out below them like a metal flower, hundreds of docking arms reaching into the void. Ships from a dozen different species moved through the traffic lanes. Lights blinked in patterns that Danny did not understand. "It is something," Maya admitted. "First time I came here, I stood at this same window for 3 hours. Almost missed my own briefing." "What changed?" Maya looked at him with something between amusement and warning. "I learned that half the species on this station think we do not belong here. The other half are not sure yet. We are new, Cadet Cole. New and strange and very, very small compared to what lives out there." Danny nodded. He had read the reports. He knew that the thought humans were too emotional to be trusted with weapons. He knew the believed humanity was a disease spreading through clean space. He knew that even their allies, the watched humans with careful eyes. "I am not here to make them like us," Danny said. "I am here to show them what we can do." Maya smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "That is exactly what worries me." The orientation was brutal. Instructor was a 7 feet of scaled muscle with 4 arms and eyes that never blinked. He made the cadets run obstacle courses designed for bodies twice as strong as human frames. He lectured them on tactics developed over 10,000 years of galactic warfare. He never once looked at the human cadets without a slight curl of disgust on his alien face. Danny failed the first obstacle course. He failed the second one too. By the 3rd day, his body was covered in bruises and his pride was hanging by a thread. But he did not quit. A cadet named found him in the medical bay on the 4th night. Was slender and blue-skinned, with large dark eyes that reminded Danny of a deer. His people were empaths, sensitive to emotion, and Danny wondered what his pain felt like from the outside. "You are hurting," said. It was not a question. "I am fine." Sat down beside him. "Among my people, lying about pain is considered very rude." Danny laughed despite himself. "Among my people, admitting pain is considered weakness." "That is strange," said. "Pain is information. It tells you what needs to heal." They talked for 2 hours. Danny told about Earth, about oceans and mountains and cities that never slept. Told Danny about forests that sang and rivers that glowed in the dark. By the end, Danny had made his first alien friend. It did not make the training easier, but it made it bearable. The cadets were the worst. A group of 4 led by a massive soldier named made it their mission to humiliate the humans at every opportunity. They tripped Danny in the corridors. They spoke about humans in their own language, laughing at jokes Danny could not understand. One night, they cornered him in the equipment room and asked if it was true that humans cried water from their eyes. Danny looked up at, who was nearly 2 feet taller and probably 5 times stronger. Every instinct told him to fight. Every bit of training told him he would lose. So he did something unexpected. He smiled. "We do cry," he said. "We also laugh. We get angry and scared, and sometimes we feel so much joy that our hearts actually hurt. You know what that means?" Leaned closer, curious despite himself. "What?" "It means we feel everything," Danny said. "Every moment of our short little lives burns bright enough to blind. And when we fight for something we love, nothing in the galaxy can stop us." The room went quiet, stared at Danny for a long moment. Then he snorted and walked away, his followers trailing behind him. Danny let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Maya found him afterward. She had watched the whole thing on the security feed. "That was either very brave or very stupid," she said. "Probably both," Danny admitted. She handed him a data pad. "Your squad has been selected for a live combat exercise on a frontier moon called 7. Transport leaves in 6 hours." Danny read the briefing. It was supposed to be a simple rescue simulation, nothing dangerous. He had no way of knowing that he would die there. And no way of knowing that dying would be just the beginning. 7 was a dead world. The mining operations had ended 50 years ago, leaving behind empty tunnels and rusted equipment scattered across a gray landscape. The sky was the color of old metal, and the wind carried dust that scratched against helmet visors like tiny claws. Danny stepped off the transport with his squad and felt the cold immediately. His suit compensated, but there was something about this place that no technology could warm. It felt wrong. It felt hungry. Commander Holt gathered the cadets at the landing zone. He was human, one of the few officers trusted to oversee joint operations. His face was weathered from years of service, and his voice carried the weight of experience. "Listen up," he said. "This exercise simulates a civilian rescue in hostile territory. Your objective is to locate survivors in the mining complex and extract them safely. You will face simulated enemy resistance. Your weapons are set to training mode. Any questions?" There were no questions. The cadets had trained for this. Danny's squad was a mix of species. He had, which was a small comfort. There was a young female named who had barely spoken to him during training but watched him with curious silver eyes. And there was Sergeant, assigned as squad leader. Danny knew's reputation. He was not, but he shared the same contempt for humans. He made it clear the moment he assigned positions. "Human," he said, pointing at Danny, "you take point." Danny looked at the map of the complex. Point position meant entering every room first. It meant being the first target if anything went wrong. It was the most dangerous assignment a squad leader could give. "Understood," Danny said. His eyes narrowed slightly. He had expected an argument. He did not get one. They entered the complex through the main shaft. The lights had been set to emergency levels for the exercise, casting everything in dim red. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Their footsteps echoed off metal walls. Danny moved carefully, scanning each corner before signaling the squad forward. His training weapon felt light in his hands. He wished it were real. Something caught his eye in the third corridor. Scratch marks on the floor, fresh ones. The dust had been disturbed recently. He raised his hand to signal a stop. "What is it?" demanded. "Someone has been here," Danny said, "recently." Pushed past him and looked at the marks. "This is a training facility. Maintenance crews come through regularly." "These are not maintenance patterns," Danny said. "Look at the spacing. Someone was dragging something heavy." "You are imagining things," said Move forward. Danny hesitated. His instincts screamed at him that something was wrong, but was his commanding officer for this exercise. He had to follow orders. He moved forward. The first shot came from nowhere. A plasma bolt screamed past Danny's head and exploded against the wall behind him. Real plasma, real fire, real danger. Contact, someone screamed. The squad scattered for cover as more shots filled the corridor. Danny dove behind a support column and tried to understand what was happening. Training exercises did not use live ammunition. Training exercises did not try to kill you. He activated his communication link. Lieutenant Vance, this is Cadet Cole. We are under fire. Repeat, we are under live fire. Static answered him. Something was jamming their signals. More figures emerged from the shadows. They wore black armor with no insignia, but Danny recognized the body shape. Tall and thin, with elongated limbs and faces hidden behind featureless masks. The Separatists hated humanity more than any other faction in the galaxy. They believed humans would corrupt the pure species of the Coalition. And they were here. Somehow they were here. Return fire, shouted. Danny squeezed his trigger. Nothing happened. He squeezed again. His weapon was dead. He looked at the others and saw the same confusion on their faces. Their training weapons had been sabotaged. They were defenseless. Fall back, ordered. They ran. The pursued, firing with terrible accuracy. A bolt caught one of the cadets in the leg and he went down screaming. Danny turned to help him but pulled him forward. You cannot help him if you are dead, said. They reached a junction and split up without meaning to. Danny found himself with and two other cadets in a narrow maintenance tunnel. He could hear the others somewhere to the left, could hear shouting orders that made no sense. Was shaking. She was young, younger than Danny had realized. This was supposed to be her first training exercise. This was supposed to be safe. Stay behind me, Danny said. She nodded, her silver eyes wide with fear. They moved through the tunnel as quietly as they could. Danny tried to remember the layout from the briefing. There was supposed to be an emergency exit somewhere ahead. If they could reach it, they might have a chance. They found them anyway. 3 of them appeared at the tunnel's end, blocking the exit. They raised their weapons in perfect unison. Danny did not think. He grabbed and threw her to the ground just as the first bolt fired. He felt heat across his back. He felt one of the other cadets scream. Then something hit him in the chest. The world went white, then it went red, then it went away entirely. The last thing Danny heard was Maya's voice through a distant speaker, calling his name. The last thing he felt was cold, spreading through his body like water filling a glass. Then there was nothing. On the command ship orbiting 7, Lieutenant Maya Vance watched Danny Cole's vital signs flatline. She watched his heart stop beating. She watched the neural activity in his brain fade to 0. She watched him die. And then 23 seconds later, something impossible happened. Darkness, complete and absolute darkness. Danny floated in it like a man drowning in a black ocean. There was no pain here. There was no fear. There was nothing at all except the slow fade of everything he had ever been. Then fire. It started in his chest, a spark that became a flame that became an inferno. His heart lurched once, twice, 3 times. Something was crawling through his blood, tiny machines smaller than cells, repairing what the plasma bolt had destroyed. The emergency, Danny remembered now. Every human soldier carried one, standard issue, but his had been different. His had contained an experimental system designed for battlefield trauma. The scientists said it could restart a stopped heart. They said it could repair critical damage in minutes. They had never tested it in the field. Until now. Danny opened his eyes and saw nothing. He was lying on a cold floor in complete darkness. The air smelled like rust and smoke. He tried to move and pain exploded through his body, so bright and sharp that he almost passed out again. He did not pass out. He forced himself to breathe, slow, steady, one breath at a time. His hands found his chest. The armor was melted and cracked where the plasma bolt had hit. Underneath, his skin was raw and burned but somehow whole. They had sealed the wound. They had not fixed it, not really, but they had given him a chance. Danny sat up slowly. His helmet was gone. His weapon was gone. His communication link was dead. But he was alive when he should not be, and that had to count for something. He let his eyes adjust to the darkness. Faint light came from somewhere above, filtering through cracks in the ceiling. He was in a storage room of some kind. Crates and old equipment surrounded him. They had dumped him here like garbage. They thought he was dead. Everyone thought he was dead. Voices drifted through the walls, voices speaking their own language. Danny did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They were excited. They were celebrating. He forced himself to stand. The pain was incredible, a living thing that wrapped around his ribs and squeezed. But he had felt pain before. He had pushed through it before. That was what humans did. Danny moved to the door and pressed his ear against the metal. More voices, closer now. He could hear them discussing something, planning something. Then he heard a word he recognized, a word that cut through the alien language like a knife. Cadets. They were talking about the other cadets, his friends. Danny searched the storage room with quiet desperation. He needed a weapon. He needed anything. His hands found a broken pipe, heavy enough to do damage. It was not much, but it was something. He waited by the door. Minutes passed, hours. He did not know how long. The pain faded to a dull roar as they continued their work. He could feel them moving inside him, tiny sparks of heat stitching his body back together. A sound outside the door, footsteps, one set coming closer. Danny pressed himself against the wall. The door opened and a guard stepped through, probably coming to check on the body. He barely had time to react before Danny swung the pipe. The guard went down hard. Danny caught him before he hit the floor and lowered him silently. He was not dead, just unconscious. Danny took his weapon, a plasma pistol with a full charge. He took the communication device from the guard's belt. He took the security card from his pocket. Then he moved. The corridors were dimly lit and poorly guarded. They were confident. They believed they had won. They did not expect a dead human to come walking out of their storage room. Danny found a ventilation shaft and climbed inside. They had repaired enough damage that he could move, but every motion still hurt. Blood seeped through the cracks in his armor. He ignored it. He had work to do. The command center was 3 levels up. Danny could hear them clearly through the thin walls of the shaft. Their leader was speaking now, a voice that carried authority and hatred in equal measure. The human cadet's body will be broadcast across the coalition networks, the leader said. The galaxy will see how easily these creatures die. They will see that humanity is weak. They will understand that humans have no place among the stars. Another voice responded, "What about the others? We will collapse the tunnel where they are trapped. Let them suffocate in the dark. Then we will leave before the rescue ships arrive." Danny's blood went cold. The others were still alive, trapped but alive, and they were going to kill them. He pulled the communication device from his belt and tried to activate it. Nothing. The jamming signal was too strong. But he could fix that. Danny crawled through the ventilation system until he found what he was looking for. The jamming equipment was set up in a small room guarded by a single technician. Danny watched through a grate in the ceiling. He counted the seconds between the technician's movements. He waited for the perfect moment. Then he dropped. The technician never saw him coming. Danny hit him hard and fast, driving him to the ground before he could make a sound. Another guard dealt with. Another stepped forward. The jamming equipment was complex, but Danny did not need to understand it. He just needed to break it. He raised the plasma pistol and fired 3 shots into the main console. The machine died in a shower of sparks. Danny activated his communication device. "Lieutenant Vance, this is Cadet Cole. Do you read me?" Static, then impossibly Maya's voice. "Danny," her voice cracked with shock. "The monitors say you are dead." "The monitors were wrong. Listen to me. They are planning to collapse the tunnel where the squad is trapped. They are going to kill everyone." "Where are you?" Danny looked around the room, inside the complex. "I am going back for them." "Danny, wait for the rescue team. You are injured. You cannot possibly fight them all." He thought about Silver, eyes wide with fear. He thought about telling him that pain was information. He thought about his sister making him promise to come home. "I am not going to fight them all," Danny said. "I am just going to buy them time." He turned off the communication device before Maya could argue. Then Danny Cole, the dead human cadet, walked back into the darkness to save his friends. The tunnels of 7 twisted like the veins of some great dead beast. Danny moved through them with the careful patience of a hunter, stopping at every corner, listening at every junction. They had set guards throughout the complex, but they were looking outward, watching for rescue teams. They were not looking for threats from inside. They were not looking for him. Danny found the first explosive device attached to a support column near the main tunnel. It was crude but effective, a mining charge designed to bring down tons of rock. There were wires running from it, connecting to a central detonator somewhere deeper in the complex. He could not disarm it. He did not have the tools or the training, but he could do something else. He kept moving. Far below, in a collapsed section of the mining complex, the surviving cadets huddled together in the darkness. The ceiling had come down during the firefight, sealing them in a space barely large enough to hold 7 bodies. Air was running out. Hope had run out hours ago. Sargent sat against the wall with his leg twisted at an angle that made look away. He had taken a plasma bolt during the retreat, and the wound was bad. His scales had lost their color, fading from deep green to a sickly gray. "We need to conserve oxygen," said quietly. "Stop talking, stop moving, breathe slowly." "What is the point?" one of the cadets said. "No one knows we are here. Our signals are blocked. By the time anyone realizes something is wrong, we will be dead." Pulled her knees to her chest. She kept seeing Danny push her out of the way. She kept seeing the plasma bolt hit him. She kept seeing him fall. "The human saved my life," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The looked at her. "What?" "He pushed me down. He took the shot that was meant for me," wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Why would he do that? He barely knew me." "Because that is what humans do," said. He was sitting in the corner, his empathic senses overwhelmed by the fear and pain around him. "I have been studying them since we arrived. They are strange creatures. They live such short lives compared to us, but they fill those lives with so much intensity." "Intensity does not stop plasma bolts," said bitterly. "No, but it makes them willing to stand in front of one for a stranger." Closed his eyes. "Danny told me about Earth. He told me about their history. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Wars over land, over resources, over ideas. Millions of them have died in conflicts that accomplished nothing." "That proves they are violent and dangerous," the cadet said. Shook his head. "It proves they are survivors. Every time something knocked them down, they got back up. Every time someone told them they could not do something, they did it anyway. They went to their moon not because it was easy, but because it was hard. They sailed across oceans without knowing what was on the other side. They built cities in deserts and farms on frozen mountains. They simply refused to give up." Sargent was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was different, softer. "I was wrong about them," he said, "about the humans. I thought they were weak because they break easily. But breaking is not weakness. Staying broken is weakness, and humans never stay broken." A distant sound echoed through the rock. An explosion, muffled by layers of stone. "They are collapsing the tunnels," said. "They are going to bury us." No one answered. There was nothing to say. Above them, Danny ran. They had spotted him. He did not know how, maybe a sensor he had missed or a guard who woke up too soon. It did not matter now. What mattered was reaching the explosives before they could detonate them. Plasma bolts screamed past his head as he sprinted through the corridors. One caught him in the shoulder and he stumbled but did not fall. Another burned a line across his leg and he kept running. The pain was distant now, somewhere far away where it could not reach him. The main explosive was ahead. He could see it at the end of the tunnel, a massive charge attached to the ceiling directly above where his were trapped. If it detonated, the entire section would collapse. There would be nothing left to rescue. Danny did not slow down. He reached the charge and wrapped his arms around it. The metal was cold against his burned skin. The detonator blinked red, counting down the seconds. There was no time to disarm it. There was no time for anything clever. So Danny did something simple. He pulled the charge free from its mounting and ran. They saw what he was doing and screamed in their alien language. They fired at him, but he was already moving, already disappearing into a side tunnel. The explosive was heavy in his arms, heavier than anything he had ever carried. His muscles burned. His lungs screamed for air. He found the ventilation shaft he had used earlier. It was wide enough for the charge, but barely wide enough for him. He shoved the explosive inside as deep as it would go. Then he dove to the ground and covered his head. The explosion was deafening. It tore through the ventilation system like a living thing, fire and force channeled upward and outward instead of down into the trapped cadets. The tunnel shook. Dust filled the air. Danny could not hear anything except ringing. But the ceiling held. The cadets below were still alive. Danny lay on the ground and stared at the ceiling. His body was finished. He had given it everything he had, and there was nothing left. Blood pooled beneath him from wounds he could no longer count. Footsteps, they were coming. He could see their shadows at the end of the tunnel. He raised his plasma pistol with a hand that would not stop shaking. He fired once, twice, 3 times. The shadows retreated. Then the pistol was empty, and he was alone, and the darkness was coming for him. Danny closed his eyes and thought about Earth. He thought about his mother's cooking and his father's handshake and his sister's stupid jokes. He thought about oceans he would never swim in again and mountains he would never climb. It was not a bad way to go. Then he heard something, a new sound different from the boots, human boots running fast. Maya's voice cut through the ringing in his ears. "Medical team on me. We have a live one." Hands lifted him from the ground. Faces swam in and out of focus. Someone was shouting orders. Someone was pressing something against his wounds. Danny opened his eyes and saw Maya looking down at him. There were tears on her face. "You idiot," she said. "You beautiful, stubborn idiot." Danny tried to smile. "Did they make it, the others?" "They are alive. Because of you. Now stop talking and let us save your life." Danny let his eyes close again. The darkness was warmer now. It felt like rest instead of death. He had done what needed to be done. Now he could sleep. The Galactic Coalition Council chamber was a cathedral of light. Holographic displays floated above the heads of delegates from 100 different species, each one representing a world or a system or an empire that had existed for longer than humanity had known fire. The chamber had seen treaties signed and wars declared. It had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Today, it witnessed something new. Danny Cole stood at the center of the chamber in a borrowed uniform. His own had been destroyed on 7, burned and torn and soaked with blood. The doctors had worked on him for 3 weeks. They had replaced parts of his lung with synthetic tissue. They had repaired the damage to his heart. They had sealed wounds that should have killed him twice over. He was still healing. He would be healing for months. But he was here, standing on his own 2 feet, because he refused to watch this moment from a hospital bed. Commander Holt stood beside him, his weathered face unreadable. The commander had barely spoken during the transport to the council. He had simply looked at Danny with an expression that might have been pride or might have been disbelief. The council speaker was an elder, ancient and dignified, with skin the color of a deep blue ocean. Her voice carried across the chamber without amplification. "We are gathered to address the events on 7, she said. On what was meant to be a routine training exercise, separatist forces infiltrated coalition space and attacked cadets under our protection. 7 survived. 3 did not. The perpetrators have been captured and will face justice." She paused and looked directly at Danny. "But there is another matter before us today." The chamber doors opened and a group of prisoners was led inside. They wore restraints and moved with the shuffling steps of the defeated. At their head was with a face and cold eyes, the leader of the attack. Behind them came another group, coalition delegates in fine clothes, their faces pale with fear. These were not prisoners, not yet, but armed guards surrounded them. "Evidence recovered from the attack has revealed a conspiracy," the speaker continued. "These delegates provided funding, intelligence, and access to the separatists. They enabled the attack. They hoped to use the deaths of human cadets to push humanity out of the coalition." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species looked shocked. Others looked satisfied. A few looked nervous in ways that suggested they knew more than they should. The evidence was provided by Cadet Danny Cole. The speaker gestured toward him. His helmet recorded everything. He transmitted the data while mortally wounded, knowing it might be the only way to expose the truth. Laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "The human was lucky," he said, "nothing more. He stumbled into our camp and caused chaos. That is not heroism, that is stupidity." The chamber fell silent. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Instructor rose from his seat. The who had doubted humans from the first day of training walked to the center of the chamber. He stood beside Danny, not facing the council, but facing. "I have seen the security recordings," said. "I have reviewed every second of what happened in that complex. Let me tell you what I saw." He activated a holographic display. Images filled the air above them. Danny lying dead on a storage room floor. Danny waking up alone in the darkness. Danny fighting through corridors with holes in his body that should have kept him down forever. "This human died," said. "His heart stopped for 23 seconds. The medical data confirms it. He was gone, and then he came back." The images continued. Danny crawling through ventilation shafts. Danny destroying the jamming equipment. Danny running with an explosive in his arms while plasma bolts tore through the air around him. He had every reason to escape, said. The rescue teams were on their way. He could have hidden. He could have waited. Instead, he went back. He went back for soldiers who are not his species. He went back for people who had mocked him and doubted him and treated him as less than equal. Turned to face directly. You wanted to prove that humans are weak. You wanted to show the galaxy that they break easily. But you made a mistake. You forgot what happens after they break. The display showed the final image. Danny lying in a pool of his own blood, his empty pistol still raised toward the enemy, still fighting, still refusing to stop. They get back up, said, and then they come for you. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. Some called for the conspirators to be executed. Others demanded an investigation into how the attack was allowed to happen. The speaker called for order again and again. Through it all, Danny stood silent. He watched being led away. He watched the corrupt delegates being arrested. He watched the chaos unfold around him and felt strangely calm. Maya appeared at his side. She took his arm gently, mindful of the wounds still healing beneath his uniform. "How do you feel?" she asked. Danny considered the question. "Tired," he said. "Really, really tired." Maya smiled. You should rest. You have earned it. They began to walk toward the exit. Before they could reach it, the speaker's voice cut through the noise. Cadet Cole. Danny stopped. He turned back to face the council. The chamber quieted as the speaker raised her hand. By unanimous vote of this council, you are awarded the Coalition Star for extraordinary valor in defense of your fellow soldiers. Danny blinked. The Coalition Star was the highest honor any species could receive. In 2,000 years, it had been awarded fewer than 100 times. No human had ever received it. He did not know what to say. Sergeant stepped forward from the crowd of survivors. He walked with a limp, his leg still recovering from the plasma wound. He stopped in front of Danny and did something no one expected. He saluted, a human salute learned in the weeks since the attack. I was wrong about your kind, said. You have my respect, Danny Cole. You have the respect of every soldier who was in that tunnel. One by one, the other survivors came forward, with her silver eyes shining, with a smile that spoke louder than words. Even the cadets who had mocked humans in the corridors of the training academy. They saluted, they bowed, they showed respect in the ways of their own cultures. Danny looked at them all, his squad, his friends, his family in a galaxy far from home. I am just a cadet, he said finally. I did what anyone would do. No, said, you did what humans do, and that is something the galaxy will never forget. Later, much later, on a world thousands of light years away, a child sat with her mother and watched the news feeds. Mother, the child asked, what are humans? The mother was quiet for a moment. Humans are small, she said. They are fragile. They live very short lives. Then why is everyone talking about them? The mother pulled her daughter close. Because when you hurt one of them, she said, they get back up, and then they come for you. The child thought about this. Are they dangerous? No, the mother said. They are something much more frightening than that. What? The mother looked at the image of Danny Cole on the screen. A young human male, barely more than a child by standards, standing in the great council chamber with bandages still visible beneath his uniform. They are relentless, she said. They simply do not know how to quit. The child watched the screen for a long time. Then she turned to her mother with wide eyes. I think I want to meet a human someday, she said. The mother smiled despite herself. Someday, she said, you probably will. They are everywhere now, and after today there will be more of them in places we never expected. The news feed showed the coalition delegates applauding as Danny Cole received his medal. A human, standing among the stars, proving that sometimes the smallest voices shout the loudest. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, humanity kept climbing, kept reaching, kept refusing to accept the limits others placed upon them. It was, after all, what they had always done. It was what they would always do.